Welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson, as we wind down toward the end of our series of stories from the Pentamerone. This week, The Face and the Goose, two very short ones. Burton's faux Jacobean for the Face story is: Renza is shut in a tower by her father, it having been foretold that she would die through a big bone. She falleth in love with a prince, and with a bone bought by her dog she boreth a hole through the wall, and escapeth, but beholding her lover, who is wedded to another, kissing his bride, she dieth of a broken heart, and the prince, unable to endure his anguish, slayeth himself. I'm not going to do much more with this, because that's basically the story. It's padded out with pages and pages of that thing where people say the same thing over and over again in elegant variation. Let's let that go. Essentially, we have a tower filled with riches, with a hole bored in one side. A girl under a curse has lived there long enough to create a small magical aura, so this could be a tiny covenant. The lady sneaks into the court of the prince by pretending to be a male bard, which is interesting. After they die, they're buried in one grave, and the story is etched in the archives. As suicides are ghosts, they are summonable in Ars Magica. The goose. The goose that lays golden eggs is obviously a source of viz and of treasure. Any covenant would want one. Shall we look at the original story of the fabulous bird? I'll skip the faux Jacobean this time. There are two poor sisters, Lilla and Lola, who make their living spinning flax, and they save enough to buy a goose, which becomes a sort of pet that sleeps in their own bed. As luck would have it, the goose begins to shit gold crowns. The author does not say which designs are on these crowns. Are they the golden ducat of Florence, the bezant of Constantinople? Which imperial head is coming from the goose? We don't know. I'd be tempted to have them come from an alternate history. In Magonomia, for example, I'd have the head of King Henry IX, or Queen Jane on them, just to make life interesting. In Ars Magica, each coin could have a mystical secret, so the player characters might need to trace every one. Sensibly, the girls fill a large chest with gold before they do anything, but after that they buy better food, clothes, and furniture. The gossips of the town notice, and what they say to each other matters only inasmuch as they show that people at the time thought of treasure as being expressed in sumptuous goods, to steal a term from Pendragon. They have, quote, become so well fed and well dressed that they live in luxury like great ladies. Hast thou seen their windows always ornamented with fowls and barons of beef, which stare thee in the face? What can it be? Either they have laid hands on their honour, or have found an hoard. Laid hands on their honour here is a reference to sex work. The gossips bore a hole in the wall of the girl's house to peek through. By the way, this is where the old English offence of housebreaking comes from. It refers to literally going through the side of a wattle and daub house with a shovel. Lilla and Lola put sheets down, and the goose sprays gold coins on them. The very balls of their eyes stood out, according to Burton. The gossips rock on up the next morning and say, I've bought some ducklings, and they'd take a lot better to the house if I could borrow your goose. They go on, and eventually the girls cave and let them borrow the magical bird. The gossips lay out sheets, which the goose covers in odour. To be fair, apparently she hadn't been pooping normally for weeks, so time for some ease and equilibrium. The gossips think maybe we need to feed her the excellent stuff the girls have been giving her, and so they pack the goose to the throat with treats and lay out a new set of sheets. Alas, the goose has dysentery due to this rich diet, and the gossips become angry. They wring the bird's neck, and they throw it out a window into a trash-strewn alleyway. As it happens, there's a bit of dysentery going around. A local prince has been caught short while out riding, and he dips into the alley and he does his business, but he finds he has no paper in his pocket to clean himself. I need to check the translation there, because I think both paper and pockets are a bit modern. He, however, sees the downy neck of a dead goose and thinks, aha, just the thing for the royal buttocks. The goose is not dead, but merely stunned. It is entirely unwilling to allow itself to be used as bog roll, so it bites the prince's bottom and latches on. The prince screams and calls his servants, but they can't get the goose off. He gives up because of the pain and makes his servants carry him home with the goose still attached. He calls for all the doctors in the realm, and they are utterly unable to remove the goose. Ointments, pincers, vinegar, none of it works. Why they don't kill the goose is unclear, some sort of mentum magic. The prince, desperate, sends out an edict. Get this goose off my ass, and I'll give you half the kingdom if you're a man, or marry you if you're a woman. What he'll do for married women is unclear. A queue forms because it's kind of like the lottery. If you happen to be the one with your hand on the goose, when it dies of hunger, you get half a kingdom. Why not go hold the goose? Also, you get to see your ruler humiliated. The more people who try, the tighter the goose locks on. Eventually, the younger daughter, Lola, arrives and calls the goose by name, and the goose leaves the prince to give her a kiss, preferring, as the author says, the lips of a country maid to the back parts of a prince. The prince asks what has caused his discomfort, and she tells her the story with the budget and the sheets and the gossips, and he thinks it's hilarious. He marries Lola. He takes the goose that shits gold as his dowry because he's not a fool, and then he marries the older sister to a rich guy, cementing his alliances. The moral is, an impediment is often an assistance. Your saga may vary.